break up our party.
Okay, so I've played my fair share of Crackdown now, and I think it's fair to say I am ready to do the review. The way I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be going through the good bits, then the bad bits, and my overall conclusion of what I thought of the game. Crackdown 3 feels a lot like the other two, which is good because I had my suspicions that they may try and change the formula with it being so long since they did a Crackdown game. But it seems that they've stuck to the guns and just made improvements elsewhere, like the graphics. This is on PC, everything's set to Ultra at 1440p, and the only thing I've got turned off is motion blur. And I hope you'll agree that while you're moving around, and especially when you go up to high buildings and look down, it does look very nice to look at, although obviously you'll get a better look at that throughout the video. Now in terms of the sound quality, everything is high quality audio. I've heard no distortion or any kind of like weird audio issues at all so far. The music side of things is like a futuristic tech. The only way I can describe it is it's a lot like Rocket League in the first season, that kind of music that it was released with, mixed with a bit of the old Crackdown music in there as well. So now that we've talked about both the graphics and the audio, I just want to talk about the actual gameplay side of things. For those of you who have never played a Crackdown game, you play as an agent hired by the agency. You are essentially a super soldier / super cop, whichever way you want to look at it. However, at the beginning of the game, you always start with a really low baseline of abilities, and the only way you can level those up is by getting ability orbs by doing various different things. You have 5 different sets of skills. You have agility, shooting, strength, explosive, and driving. You can find green agility orbs around the map, or you can do races. You get blue shooting skill orbs if you shoot someone. You get red strength skill orbs if you manage to beat someone up. You also get yellow explosion orbs when you blow things up. And finally you get purple driving orbs, which you get for just general driving, stunts, or races that you can do also. You can also find hidden orbs, which give you a mix of all 5. Every time you hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 within a certain skill, you get an ability unlocked. Whether it just be that you can jump higher, or you can go further, whether you can shoot with more accuracy, or you get more explosives to carry around with you, that kind of thing in general. And it's been like that since Crackdown 1. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about the gameplay, because it just unlocks this whole sandbox way of playing. You can pretty much do whatever you want within the game once you get a certain amount of skill points for whatever you want to be doing. And to be honest, the one that impressed me most with the vehicle side of things is once you actually level up your vehicle to a certain point, you can kind of transform it into 3 different things, which they revealed during the trailer. And it grants you quite a lot of versatility in terms of the vehicles. You can pretty much do whatever you want with them, as long as you can kind of imagine it, you can probably do it. And in my opinion, I think that's probably one of the strongest bits of the game. You can do whatever you want as long as you can kind of imagine it. Like if you don't really feel like climbing a building because it's a bit far up there to get to the boss, well, why not just jump on the side of the building and drive up? It's just one of those games where it has something a little bit different to all the other ones that are similar. And hopefully if they make a Crackdown 4, they will continue this trend ongoing. So now that we've had a look at the graphics, the sound, and the gameplay, I'm just going to have a look at the negative side of the game, which is unfortunate. And I say unfortunate because of the fact that there's only a few things that really stand out to me that let the game down at the moment. The first thing I want to talk about is the actual story content, and you may be able to tell how shocked I was at how short the actual campaign is by my Twitter post saying that I accidentally completed the game. I thought there was going to be a lot more to the story than there actually was, and I'm not going to spoiler it or anything like that for anyone who does want to play it, but it is a lot shorter than what I expected. And quite a lot of the content is pretty much copy-paste. There's a few different aspects of the game that you have to do, and you essentially have to do them a few different times, and they all feel exactly the same as the last. There might be a slight change in location, or it might be a few different kind of enemies you have to fight, but that's pretty much it. It's going to be exactly the same. And to be honest, I think that's a real shame because the story could have been really fleshed out. There could have been a lot more to it, and there could have been a lot more things to do within that campaign. Because now I feel that it's just pretty much one big map, but there's not really that much story within it. And the other thing I want to talk about in terms of a negative is the actual difficulty of the game. I had it on the hardest difficulty for most of the game, and it was pretty much, yeah, it's a challenge, but it's doable. But for the final boss, and again, I'm not going to spoiler it, but it essentially made it impossible to do. It was a ridiculous difficulty increase from being, okay, yeah, it's a challenge to, oh my god, I want to kill myself. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like a challenge, but I genuinely attempted the last boss for about half an hour to 45 minutes and then just turned the difficulty down because I was like, this is just, it's just been made ridiculously hard for the intent of making the game longer. And the negatives that I've just talked about pretty much come together to make the game a bit of a confusing mess because you kind of just get to grips and just unlock all the good stuff to be able to actually, you know, play the game your way and have all the freedom to do what you want within a fight. And then the game just ends. I think I spent about as much time finding the ability orbs than actually doing the actual campaign itself, which is a bit strange for a game. And for me, this Crackdown is more about the campaign than the online aspect of it. And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the negatives is the actual voice acting within the game. And I'm not knocking the actual voice acting itself, I'm actually just going to knock the amount of voice acting within it. I thought that Terry Crews would have a lot of voice lines and all the other voice actors would probably have quite a lot of voice lines as well. It's just one of those games. Whereas in actual fact, you barely hear Terry Crews talk, all the other voice actors have very minimal voice lines and you keep hearing the same ones repeatedly. And it's one of those things where the first time it's funny because they say something funny, and then you hear it the second time, you're like, oh, that was funny, you said that before, and then you keep hearing it again and again and again and again until eventually it just starts to annoy you. But to give you my conclusion and my kind of overall look of the game, it's a pretty solid Crackdown that still keeps its unique aspects of being able to do anything any way you want, and it is a fun experience if you enjoyed the previous games as well. The only thing it seems to let itself down on is the actual content and length of the game itself. It's one of those things where if you put one day into it, you're probably going to finish it if you don't try and do completionist. Now because I got the Game Pass, I got this included anyway, but if I was paying MSRP, I would be pretty annoyed at the amount of content that was in it, to be completely frank. Although if you did want to play this with a friend and you wanted to play the PvP mode online as well, I'm sure you could get more value out of it that way. But in terms of a scoring, I think I'm going to give this a solid 6 out of 10. It is a solid game in many aspects, but let itself down in a few other areas. The graphics, sound and gameplay are all solid, and I haven't encountered any bugs so far, which is quite rare for a modern release. All I can really hope for is that if they do make Crackdown 4, they learn from what they've done here and make it so there's much more story content to complete, and please just make it so that it's not so repetitive. But I think that pretty much rounds off this review of Crackdown. If you like this video, give it a like. If you dislike this video, then give it a dislike. And if you really like me, you can give me a subscribe. And as always, my Twitter and Twitch will be in the description below. And as always, I hope to see you here for the next video.